let's take a look at translating word problems into algebraic equations and then solving those equations. First, example 1 says the sum of 6 times a number and 1 is equal to 5 times the number. The first thing we want to do is identify the equal in our equation, and it is the words is equal to. So I'm going to circle is equal to. And then I want to see if I can set up the two sides. The sum, which means add, and we say we're going to add 6 times a number and 1. Well, 6 times a number is going to be 6 times this multiplication. So I say 6 and the number is not known, so 6x is 6 times a number. It told me to add, and it told me to add 1 to it. And then I have my equal sign. And it's equal to 5 times the number. Well, it's saying the same number, so it'll equal 5x. We just have to use the same variable for both. Now I want to get my variables together. I'll subtract out 5x from both sides. And I have x plus 1 is equal to 0. And it is very important that I keep this 0 over here because it's holding up its side of the equation. Now I need to get rid of this positive 1, so I'll subtract it. Subtract 1 from both sides, and x is going to equal negative 1. Example 2 says 3 times the number minus 6 is equal to, there's my middle of my equation, 2 times the number plus 8. Well, 3 times the number, we would say 3x. And then it says minus 6, so I'll just say minus 6 is equal to 2 times the number, or 2x, plus 8. That one wasn't too difficult because it was just straight translation. Let's see, subtracting, get my variables together. I'll move this 2x over. I have x minus 6 is equal to a positive 8. And then let's get rid of this negative 6 by adding 6 to both sides. And x is going to equal 14. Example 3, it says twice the sum. Now if it's saying twice and sum, it's saying multiply and add, and it's putting them right there together. So I'm going to know I'm going to have to put a parenthesis between those two operations. Twice the sum of negative 2 and a number is, there's my equal sign, and it says is the same as the number. The number is my x number again. Here's x, and sum of negative 2 and x is going to look like that. And then I have to multiply by 2, that's twice. Is the same as the number, x decreased by, is minus 1/2, would be 1/2. Now I've written it up here, I'll write it again. It's going to say twice the sum of negative 2 and a number is the same as the number decreased by 1/2. Well, we've got a fraction and we've got equations, but to make it a little simpler, let's go ahead and simplify the left side before we clear this fraction. I'm going to say 2 times negative 2 gives me, I'll work over here, it gives me a negative 4, and 2 times x is going to give me a positive 2x, and that's going to equal x minus 1/2. Now I want to clear the fraction. Common denominator, I have to multiply by all terms. That's the number 2 I'll need to multiply by. When I multiply times my fraction, it's going to be 2 over 1. When I multiply by all the other terms, they're whole numbers, so I'll just multiply each one times 2. I'll just write it up here above so I remember what I'm doing. The first term, negative 4 times 2, gives me a negative 8. The second one, 2x times 2, 4x. The third one, x times 2, well, 2x. And the fourth term is a negative 1/2 times 2. Well, I would cross-reduce, and it gives me a negative 1. Now this equation is much more convenient for me to solve. I like this better. I'm going to get my variables together. I'll subtract 2x from both sides. I have negative 8 plus 2x is equal to a negative 1. The 2x is canceled. Don't forget the negative in front of the 1 stays there. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. I end up with 2x equals a positive 7. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. What I end up with is really x equals 7/2. I can rewrite that for you. I'm running out of room here. But x all by itself would equal 7/2. And we could leave that as an improper fraction since they didn't tell us not to. Example number 4 is a problem that usually shows up on the final exam for this particular class. I want you to pay close attention to how we're going to set this one up. It says we have a 25-inch piece of steel that's cut into 3 pieces, so the second piece is twice as long as the first piece, and the third piece is 1 inch more than 5 times the length of the first piece. Now that sounds very confusing. Always read a word problem twice, and then write down the pieces in it that you see that are going to be set up. I have a piece of steel, and it's going to be cut into 3 pieces. So I'm going to say piece number 1 is my first unknown. Number 2 would be my second unknown. And number 3 would be my third unknown. Now, I have to look at my problem and say, what did they tell me about these 3? Well, they said that the second piece is twice as long as the first piece. They didn't tell me much about the first piece, did they? I'm going to put a block around that. They told me the second piece was twice as long, but they said nothing about the first piece. And then they said the third piece is 1 inch more than 5 times the length of the first piece. Once again, nothing about the first piece. So since they've told me nothing about the first piece, that's the one I want to make x. Now, let's represent number 2 and number 3 in terms of x. What do they say about the second piece? It's twice as long as the first piece. The first piece is x, so the second piece will be twice x or 2x. The third piece, 1 inch more than, so that would be 1 inch plus 5 times the length of the first piece again. So the 5 times the length of the first would give me 5 times x. Now I have all 3 of my pieces. They're already set up for me. What else does it tell me in my problem? They told me that all 3 of these pieces together, when they were 1 piece of steel, equaled 25 inches. Well, that would mean that if I added the 3 of them together, I should get 25 inches. So let's do that. Let's say x plus 2x plus 1 plus 5x, those are the 3 pieces, equals 25. Now this is an equation that shouldn't be too hard for me to solve. I'm going to get my x's together over here on the left-hand side. I have x, I have 2x, and I have 5x. If I add those together, this is 1x plus 2x is 3x, plus 5x gives me 8x, plus 1 is going to equal 25. I want to isolate my variable. I have to get rid of this positive 1. I'll subtract it. 8x is now equal to 24. And I need to divide by the coefficient of the variable. So I'll divide by 8. Those simplify down to 1x is equal to 24 divided by 8, or 3. I now know what piece 1 is. Piece 1 is equal to 3 inches. We were dealing with inches, so we know that we're going to end up with inches. Okay, piece number 2 is going to equal 2 times 3, or 6 inches. And piece number 3 is going to equal to 1 plus 5 times 3, which that would be 1 plus 15, or 16 inches. The 3 pieces, 3 inches, 6 inches, and 16 inches.